Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. Vedanta is really putting things into perspective. It's not about eliminating anything, just seeing where things belong and thereby not getting kind of entangled in one or more of the things. And one of the things about or consequences of not putting things in the right perspective is we tend to want to kind of fine-tune the mind, right? There's this need to perfect the mind, to make the mind perfect, to make the life perfect, to have the perfect friend, to have the perfect partner, to make the perfect employee, perfect life, perfect everything, perfect body. We have to understand that there's no such thing as perfection in relative to the 5 layers. You will never have a perfect life. You will never have perfect thoughts. You will never have a perfect friend or perfect spouse or perfect teacher or perfect student or perfect employer or perfect client or perfect emotion or perfect money or perfect anything. These are all relative because they are dependent upon what you believe is perfect. And our standards for perfection always increases. So when we get something, then the mind tends to find a new standard to look up to. And therefore, it's never quite able to come to that place of perfection that it so longs for. Therefore, this need to kind of make the mind perfect, there's a level of acceptance that that's not possible, number one. It's ironically, that's what brings you a relief. That's what makes you sort of relaxed, because a lot of this anxiety comes from having to kind of self-criticize, right? We don't kind of put up to certain standards and then we say something's wrong with me. But this is just your personality, and your personality is exactly what it is. It cannot be any more or less than what it is. It just happens to be your personality. It just happens to be your suit, your jacket that you're wearing. It happens to be your personal identity that you're wearing. And the identity, according to Krishna, as he tells to Arjuna, it's to be used in the light of contribution. What can I do for my environment here? Otherwise, then the mind has too much time to look at its imperfections, and then it starts to create a story around that. And thereby the narrative itself becomes another layer to work with or get enmeshed in. So these layers are to be kind of looked at objectively, and rather than manipulating them, there's a level of acknowledgement. They are there, they are assigned, and let me use them for my best ability. Let me use them for a way that can help me grow, but also help everyone else that's involved also prosper. And how can I uplift myself with these 5 layers and also use these 5 layers to uplift others? So the implications of these 5 layers is something that it's not just understand abstract knowledge. It's not something you just say, Andre told us about this, or Swami told us about this, and then the class ends, right? And then you just never reflect upon this. This is what we call church service. On a Sunday, the person walks in, they listen to the priest, they go, oh, the priest is the wise one. Oh, wise priest, give me some bread, give me some blessings. And the moment the person walks out, right, there's no relation to what happened in the class. You're not taking it on board. So I want you to pause now and just think, am I treating this seriously? Because we're not talking about a small thing here. We're talking something that is vast, huge, limitless itself. So it's not something that you hear and then say, wow, I heard about Ritam, for example, research information, speak, research your stuff, look into your stuff before speaking and deliver it in a pleasant manner, right? And then you say, that sounds good. But then a coming together comes, right? And then the person just starts to chatter, right? Chatter without really thinking what they're saying. So this says a lot how, whether you respect this information or whether you respect this information and you're really taking it on board. Because we said adhikari, if you go to the beginning, adhikari is not just one deserving recipient who has the right frame of shraddha, faith in the knowledge. Adhikari uses viveka, discriminative inquiry. So discriminative inquiry means it is the duty of the listener to not only listen, that's called shravanam, but also constantly, deliberately think in the light of the knowledge received. The verse wants to communicate what is behind these 5 layers. What is the truth behind these 5 layers, without which these 5 layers do not exist? What is that? And the first verse says, Atma tarhi kaha sat-chit-ananda svarupaha. What have we heard so far? We have heard about what you are not, right? You're not an annamaya kosha, you're not the physiological functions, the pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha, right? So even happiness, we start to have a different relationship towards, this is a relief actually, if you think about it. Before, what was the purpose of life? Suppose it is to be happy, which is fine. Everyone deserves happiness. It's lovely if there's more happiness in life, right? No one's going to deny this. But at the same time, if happiness doesn't come, so what? Because it's just another manifestation. A tree is a manifestation. The sun is a manifestation. A thought is a manifestation. Happiness is also a manifestation. Therefore, for a wise person, if they get happiness, wonderful. If not, that's none of my business. As Krishna said to Arjuna, right? What is it to be done in this? What is it that I can contribute and give here? The happiness that comes is just an incidental byproduct of your participation in this world. So that too becomes something that is just another object that is, if it comes, wonderful. If it doesn't, then, at the same time, it doesn't bother me because it's just a manifestation of the world. Question may come now, having heard that I'm not these 5, then who am I? Now, the danger is, does this mean that I'm nothing, right? That I'm just nothing? Am I shunya? Like in some sects of Buddhism, not all of them, they will say that you are shunya. There's no self. There's no I. There's no real existence of the I. Your emptiness and your nothingness. Now, does that sound exciting? Your emptiness and your nothingness. You're not even darkness. You're not even boredom. You're even less than that. You're just nothing, right? So it doesn't sound very exciting, because who wants to now pursue a journey whereby you discover yourself and you're just nothing, nothing, nothing. You're just total emptiness. There's nothing there to say about it. So your experience contradicts that. Everyone looks for happiness because happiness is fullness. Happiness doesn't feel empty at all. Happiness feels alive. It feels connected. In fact, it feels inclusive. So now to say that, right, the nature of I is emptiness, it doesn't quite make sense. And there's a certain way to demonstrate that your nature, Atma, is not nothingness. You see, in this world, we take in data through only 2 ways. Only 2 ways you make sense of the world. The first one is called Indriya Pratyaksha. Indriya Pratyaksha. Indriya means sense organs, and Pratyaksha means perception. So this is easy, right? You take your world through your 5 organs of perception, right? The eyes and ears and the skin and so on. Right now, you're taking this experience through your eyes, for example. The second way by which you understand anything or the world is known is through what's called Sakshi Pratyaksha. Sakshi Pratyaksha. Now, this, when I say the word Sakshi here, it is not the same Sakshi as Avastha Traya Sakshi, the consciousness Sakshi. This Sakshi means the inner instrument by which, for example, when you say I am in love, or you say I feel grateful, or you say I don't like this, or I like this, do you need perception? Do you need Indriya Pratyaksha to cognize the fact that you're in love? Do you kind of like take your eye and look inside your brain and go, there's some brain cells that are activated? Do you use your 5 organs of perception to understand that you're grateful? No. Therefore, Indriya Pratyaksha is used for cognizing objects, physical objects, whether it's under a microscope or right without one. And Sakshi Pratyaksha is the inner instrument by which your inner thoughts get cognized, including the dream. So when you're dreaming at night, are you kind of looking with your eyes, right, with your sense organs? Are your sense organs being used to cognize that dream? No. What's cognizing your dream is called Sakshi Pratyaksha. Another word for it is the Antahkarana. The Antahkarana is the inner instrument, otherwise the mind. So these two, we have one more way of cognizing the world. The second way, another way of cognizing is called perception-based inference. So perception-based inference is whereby 50% of the information is acquired through your senses, eyes or ears, and the other 50% is completed through logic. So if your eyes are open and you're driving a car and you see red light, you don't see that car stopping, do you? You do use the information of the red lights for them to see their brakes are on, but your brain understands that that person is braking. So one part of you, that perception, is required to see the two lights, the brake lights, but the other is completed through what's called logic, just inference. So inferent, perception-based inference. Therefore, I infer the person is stopping the car, even though I don't see them stopping the car. How? Because the brain is completing that loop, the other 50% through inference. Okay, so we have Indriya Pratyaksha, we have Sakshi Pratyaksha, and we have perception-based inference called Anumana. Okay, so basically, now look at this. You need the sense organs to cognize the world. You need Sakshi Pratyaksha to cognize the mind, your inner thoughts. But let me ask you this. Do you need, if I ask you the question, do you exist? Right? Do you exist? Do you need Indriya Pratyaksha to know that you exist? Do you kind of like go, hold on, Andre. My body's here. Yep, I exist. Hold on. My arms are here. Yep. There's a pain. I exist. Yeah. Do you need that? No. So you don't need Indriya Pratyaksha. Do you need Sakshi Pratyaksha to know that you exist? What I mean by this is, hold on, Andre, hold on. Let me just, I remember that I exist, therefore I exist. Oh, hold on. I just had a thought. 1 + 1 = 2. Look, I can calculate, therefore I exist. Do you need Sakshi Pratyaksha to understand that you exist? Do you need to like conclude, hold on, I exist, hold on. So my body's alive, I'm breathing, I'm speaking, right? I'm hearing noises. So this is I exist. Is this what you do to understand that you exist? No. So you don't need Indriya Pratyaksha to know that you exist, and you don't need Sakshi Pratyaksha to know that you exist. And these two are the only ones which include perception-based inference, as I just mentioned. These two are the only means by which knowledge takes place of the world. There's no other ways. Now look at this. If I don't need the only two means by which knowledge takes place, and I know that I exist, what does that mean? It means that existence, my own existence, is self-revealing. It doesn't need senses, nor does it need a mind to understand that I am. Understand? Therefore, I exist without the need of these two. Okay. So this shows us that Atma is not shunya. Were Atma to be shunya, that means emptiness or nothingness, then it would again contradict your experience in the sense that you would not know that you are. You would not know that you exist unless you sort of have something to look at or something to think about. So I don't need something to think about. I don't need something to look at, something to listen to. I am self-revealing of my own. Okay? Is this making sense so far? So the basis of this was the only two means how any knowledge takes place is through Indriya Pratyaksha, the five sense organs, and through Sakshi Pratyaksha, that is the inner instrument called Antahkarana. If I don't need them to know that I am, whereas everything else needs them to know that it is, what does this mean? Then my order of reality, the self-revealing one, am a different order of reality than everything else, including Indriya Pratyaksha and Sakshi Pratyaksha. This is what we call Satya-Mithya relationship. So that one who is self-revealing is called Satyam. And everything else that needs to be revealed in the presence of Indriya Pratyaksha and Sakshi Pratyaksha, but also Indriya Pratyaksha also needs me, doesn't it? It needs the self-revealing one. Sakshi Pratyaksha also needs the self-revealing one. So they pick up the world, and who, in the presence of who, are these two picked up, or are they cognized? In the presence of I, the self-revealing one. So rather than saying I am nothing, rather, because I am, there is Indriya Pratyaksha. Because I am, there is Sakshi Pratyaksha. Okay, therefore, Vedanta does not have this idea that you are nothing or you are, utterly, empty. Okay. Sat kim kala trayepi tishtati sat. So what is existence? Before we go into the verse, let's explain. What is sat of sat-chit-ananda? So we are analyzing sat and chit and ananda, which are defining words of who you are. What is your nature? Because we spoke about who you are not. So let's speak about who you are. How can limited words communicate something that is limitless? Because every word is limited. And this is where we use a pramana. A pramana is a means of knowledge which is able to communicate something that is limitless through limited words. See, Vedanta says something very different about existence than how we often think about existence. When I say to you existence, what's the first thing that comes to a person's mind? Existence.
Existing things within time and space.
Perfect. Existence of a cup, right? Existence of anything. So, existence. Okay, great. But this is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about existence within time and space. Vedanta's definition of the word existence, sat, is different. What Vedanta does, it brings out the implied meaning of existence. Implied meaning is when you abandon the part that connotes limitation and you leave the part that is conveying the original message, that is conveying what is meant to be conveyed. So I get rid of the part which connotes limitation, in this case, existence within time and space. We get rid of that. And what we leave is the definition that we really intend to convey. In Sanskrit, we call this specifically bhaga, tyaga, lakshana. And bhaga, tyaga means abandonment of a part. You're abandoning a certain part of that word. In this case, you're abandoning time, space, existence. And lakshana just means method. So if I say to you the word existence, what are you abandoning in the word existence?
Limitation.
Limitation in reference to?
Time and space.
Time and space. And what are you leaving? That which we are leaving is what Vedanta intends to communicate. Okay.
The seer. I am the seer.
Yeah, so we will go through the methodology and we'll see what Vedanta is communicating. All right. So let's talk about relationship to time and the word existence. So we're talking about sat now, the word sat. In the verse, it says that sat is that which obtains in the 3 periods of time. So what is existence? It's that which is equally true in the past, equally true in the present, and equally true tomorrow or in the future. So there will never be a time when it's less of what it already is. There will never be a time in way, like right from now, way many years from now, when it will be sort of more or less than it already is right now. There will never be a time when existence is kind of like, more greater, like lovelier existence than it already is right now. So for example, right, your brain cell that you have now was not there yesterday. Your I sense of who you are, your opinion about yourself. Today, like I am tired. Tomorrow, oh, I am energized. I'm a greatest ever. And then next day, oh, I'm miserable. And then next day, I am small. And then you go to a concert, right? With so many people, you don't know anyone there. And then how do you feel? Oh, I'm small, right? And then you walk into a place where you're very familiar with, right? You've got your colleagues, you've got your friends there. What is your opinion about yourself then? I'm the man, the woman of the show, right? I can gladly work here. So your opinion about you always changes. This is called your I sense, your ahamkara, right? How do you feel, right? What opinion do I have about who I am right now? What is it that I know about me as a person right now? These are all opinions about I. So Vedanta is saying, right, despite these opinions, there is something that remains equally true, okay? Now, this equally true that remains is just that presence, the presence that I always am. I am. Yes, you may feel big or small or, confident or not confident. Your opinion about you may change, but there's always I am. Okay. So what I want to do is look into the definition of past, present, and future, because existence is that which obtains in the past, present, and future. So we need to analyze two words, past and future, okay? So if you think about the past, when the past was, that was the present. You understand? From present standpoint, when I think about the future, when the future comes, that will be the present. And the present is the present, of course. So you're never really in a past or future. There's no past or future. This whole thing that movies, like Star Trek, I think it's in Star Trek, whatever, right? They go into the future, right? Back to the future, or they go to the past. This is great sci-fi. It's really interesting. I get it. But in reality, suppose even if that was to be true, suppose you go into the past. Have you really gone in the past? Or the only thing that's changed is the environment in the present? No more buildings. Now I see dinosaurs. But you're seeing dinosaurs when? In the present. Or suppose you want to go into the future. The only thing that's going to change is I no longer see buildings. I see flying cars. But when? In the present. Okay? So there's no such thing as past or future except when it really does occur, which is in the present. Clear so far? Okay. So then we have this word called present. We know the past, we know the future only occur in the present. But let's look at this word present. How present is present? They say be in the present. Okay, let's attack the word present. Or let's look at the word present. Suppose you want to arrive to the absolute present. You're not kidding, man. You want the present. You don't want 1 second present. You want the present. So let's look at this. Let's take 1 millennium. Suppose you say 1 millennium is the present. Okay. And then someone says, no. For me, the present is 1 century. And someone else says, no, for me, present is 1 year. No. Present is 1 month. No. 1 week. No. Present is 1 day. Okay, we're closer to the present, right? How about the present is 1 hour? No. The present is 1 minute. Well, we can go further. The present is 1 second. Are we at the present now? 1 second closer to present? Come on, we're very close to the present. Okay, how about 1 millisecond? Close? Okay, how about 1 microsecond? 1 nanosecond? Is that okay? 1 picosecond? Are we at the present now? How about 10 to the negative 44? That's called Planck. That's 0.43 zeros, 53, I think it's 9, 53, no, 538. I think it's 8 or 9, one of those numbers. 0.00005, like 43 zeros, 538. Are we at the present now? That's the shortest possible length of scientists they're able to work out with their instrumentation. Not really, because that's only 43 zeros after the 0 dot. I can put 1 more 0. Never mind 43 zeros, 538. I can put 0 dot infinite zeros. How many zeros do you need to put to come to the absolute present? So where's the present? Is there a present? And what is the present? Therefore, if you look at this inquiry, you will conclude 2 things if you look carefully. The first thing is throughout the inquiry of trying to arrive to the present, there is a substratum of existence, I. There's a substratum of existence onto which these units of time are superimposed. 1 hour superimposed upon existence. 1 second is superimposed upon existence. 1 millisecond is superimposed on existence. All of these units of time, they are done, the concept of time, because these are all concepts of time, all of them depend on the underlying substratum of existence. And what is that substratum of existence? Awareness, I am. But at the same time, if you look at every one of these units, 1 second, 1 millisecond, 1 minute, all of them enjoy existence. 1 second exists, 1 minute exists, 1 hour exists, 1 millisecond exists, Planck time exists. You understand? So this means that not only do units of time, more like concepts of time, enjoy or are superimposed the common substratum of existence, but the time units themselves are enjoying that same existence. So if I just say that there's a substratum of time, then you're going to probably think, well, that means that substratum is different than time itself. But it's not, because time itself, no matter what unit, exists. Therefore, time, every unit of time depends upon existence, and that very existence, because of which all time units are, remains free of every time unit. If existence was locked to 1 second, then you could not have existence of 1 minute. If existence was isolated to 1 minute, then you could not have existence of 1 hour. So existence remains free. While remaining free, it allows different existent units of different length to exist.
Meaning time is purely transactional or vyavaharikam. It is not absolute at all.
Time depends on satyam. Time depends on existence to be. Time changes, the units change of time. Bus time, right? Suppose you and I are at the bus station and we're there going, come on, bus. And the bus is coming in 5 minutes, I tell you. And it feels like an hour for us, especially when it's raining. Now, suppose it's a very funny bus station and there are 2 people dating on a dinner table. You're not going to find that. But anyway, they're dating. For them, those same 5 minutes are going to be what? Like 1 second. This is too short. Come on, we need more time. But you're like, come on. I want every second. Every second feels like an eternity. So the sense of time for me, the one that's waiting for the bus, and the sense of time for them who are having a blast, identify with the Anandamaya Kosha, most likely, The time is very different. But what is common for me and what is common for them? In my presence, I am. On top of this I am, there is a sense of time. In their presence, I am. On top of this I am, there is a sense of time. But the time itself feels different for both of us, and yet there is an equal sense of I am for both me and the couple who are dating. Therefore, the point is to demonstrate not only does time depend on existence, but at the same time or simultaneously, existence remains free of time itself. That's why it's able to give way to different units of time. That's why existence is able to make, for me, time feel like an eternity, and for them to make time feel like, or 5 minutes feel like 1 second. Okay, but existence remains as it is. Let's look at relationship between existence and objects. So far, we looked at relationship between time and existence. What about objects, ordinary objects on your table included, your shirt included, the table. The table is nothing but the wood. The wood is made up of cellulose and lignin molecules. Cellulose and lignin molecules are atoms. Atoms can be further reduced. So we see that in this order, right, your table, take your table, for example, we see in this order, they're all having a form, and the forms are changing. But what is common in all of these forms at the level of the table, at the level of the wood, at the level of the molecules, at the level of the atom? What is common? Table is, wood is, cellulose is, lignin is, atom is. So you see how they all depend on is. This isness is sat, existence. So this means all forms, including the table, is superimposed upon is, existence. The wood is superimposed upon is, existence. The molecules are superimposed upon is, existence. The atoms are superimposed upon is, existence. Time is superimposed upon is, existence. Space is superimposed upon is, existence. At the same time, existence remains completely free of that which is superimposed upon it. That is why existence can appear as a table, and simultaneously existence can appear as the wood, and simultaneously existence can appear as the molecules, and simultaneously existence can appear as the atom. You see this? So every layer enjoys its own independent layer. At the same time, existence is completely free of the attributes superimposed upon it. Let's apply this to your body. Easy to talk about objects. What about your body and your thoughts? Do you really have a body? Or is just a bunch of parts which we give names to, and each level of those parts, each level of the part enjoys existence. Skin is, muscle is, cell is, heart is, molecules of the heart is, hair is. So is there such thing as a body? Or it's just names upon names upon names upon names with a form put together, all equally enjoying existence. Is. From the beginning to the end, find me one place where you cannot find is. You can find the table at the level of the table. You can't find the table at the level of the wood. But what I can find at the level of the table and the wood is existence. We often say, I'm not the body-mind. Why even say that? If the body-mind is nothing but existence with a name, with a form, What does a thought consist of? Objects. Every thought consists of objects. Now, which object in there doesn't enjoy existence? Tell me. Where can you not find existence in that thought of yours? Nowhere. The whole thought exists. Every object inside the thought exists. The whole thing is superimposed upon existence. Therefore, existence is in and through every part of your cell, DNA, thought, emotion. Even right now, as you're listening to me, these are just existent words. Existent words cognized by an existent being, by an existent brain, who's going to have existent thoughts after this class, with an existent smile. All of these forms upon forms depend on this one sat. Find me one place where sat is not. You can't do it. In fact, even to try to answer me, that thought is sat. Therefore, who am I? I am existence, because of which all forms enjoy their unique names and forms. At the same time, none of these attributes are attributed onto you. Because if anything, if a thought, existent thought, was attributed onto you, then you could not simply leave that thought alone. That thought will be stuck with you forever. Just the fact that a thought is able, an existent thought is able to change or leave you alone, means that you, your existence, was free of the thought all along. Knowing this, how many existences are there? Okay, suppose we have salt existence and cup existence. And I ask you the question, how many existences are there? And suppose you say 2. Now, the number 2 is in reference to what? This and this. It's in reference to the object, to the name and form. But when you say one existence, in reference to what is that one referring to?
To the substratum that holds everything.
Excellent. So if you look at this cup, cup exists, ceramic exists, atoms exist. So therefore, you cannot put 2 existences, because if you were to do that, then you would be attributing existence 1 with a certain attribute and existence 2 with another attribute. But attributes always belong to what? The form, right? The form, whether it's the table form or wood form or lignin form or whatever form. One existence alone from which all things have their being or enjoy their being or are superimposed upon. Satkim, so what is existence? That which obtains in the 3 periods of time, and it cannot be negated. Okay, next, consciousness. Chitkim, jnana svarupaha. See, if we stop at existence, then you may think, well, what kind of existence is this? Is this an inert existence? Do I want an inert existence? The answer is probably not. So another word that is used to get rid of this idea that existence is inert is the word chit. So what it's saying is sat is chit, right? Existence is consciousness. You can also reverse that. You can say consciousness, that's what chit means. Consciousness is existence. So if there is only one existence, as you just answered me, and consciousness is that one existence, then how many consciousnesses are there? One also. It's not like there are 2 different words. They're just one reality communicated from 2 different standpoints to help you understand a little bit better. So one existence, one consciousness, and from that one existence consciousness, that sat and chit, what arises? The many. Time, space, and objects. And one of those objects happens to be you right now. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is something that you cannot find under a microscope. The scientists are trying very hard. I keep dates with the neuroscientists, they have computer models. We want to map out consciousness, and we are getting closer. Someday in the future, we will be able to extract human consciousness. We will be able to download your consciousness, and we will be able to upload your consciousness to a different body in the future. And you're like, all right, I'm going to pay for cryogenics. I'm going to have you freeze my body. I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year, and wake me up in 100 years when you're able to kind of preserve my life, or whatever, upload my consciousness elsewhere. I guarantee you the topic and the expertise of Vedanta is consciousness. Science has its section, its validity, and we honor science. In fact, science is helping a lot for Vedanta through many examples that they have. But one thing you cannot do is find consciousness anywhere. However, it is evident to everyone that there is consciousness. It's self-revealing. It's obvious to everyone. Even if you ask someone in Africa who doesn't even have the lingo of the word consciousness, in fact, some cultures don't have the word for consciousness at all. If you say to them, are you conscious? They may not be able to reply to you. That's because of their culture, and the words doesn't have the right meaning to express it. But if they were to have the right words, they would still say, yes, I'm conscious. I have no doubt that I am, right? I have no doubt that I exist and that I am. So we can look at a person and we see them moving, and then we infer, because you're moving, because you're talking to me, you have consciousness. But when you say you have consciousness, you're not objectifying consciousness, are you? You're just saying you have consciousness in reference to your movement. So when you say, if I say to you, for example, Gayatri, you are conscious, am I in that moment objectifying consciousness or objectifying her body? I'm objectifying her body. But why did I then say you are consciousness if I was not referring to consciousness? Because I can't objectify consciousness, I can only objectify the body. Because I used inference. I looked at her body, she's moving, right? She's bubbly. Gayatri really is bubbly. And I say, okay, she's a conscious being. She's smiling right now. You see that? Only a conscious being can smile. Try making a rock smile. Can't do it. In fact, the rock is also going to enjoy consciousness, and we will explain how. So, but still, even if I say, Gayatri, you're conscious, in that moment, I did not objectify consciousness. I objectify Gayatri's body. But what I really meant was, I have no doubt the presence of consciousness. That's what I really meant underneath those words. So we need to see, we see consciousness indirectly in reference to a different person, like moving, but you also know that you are conscious because it's self-evident. But you can't objectify it. Consciousness is sat, and sat obtains in the 3 periods of time. Then where is consciousness? In 1 period of time or in 3 periods of time? It's in 3 periods of time also. So even if you die right now, it's not like consciousness went out of existence, because there's other individuals still enjoying consciousness around you. They're still conscious and they're looking at you. Therefore, consciousness obtaining in the 3 periods of time, because tomorrow you will be conscious, today you're conscious, yesterday you were conscious. But what is different other than your consciousness? How you were, your I sense. Who I was yesterday was different than who I am today, or how I feel about myself today. And how I feel about myself tomorrow will be very different than how I am feeling about myself today. But in the presence of consciousness, I feel, I conclude, and I have an opinion about myself. Therefore, the feelings, the conclusions, the I sense, once again, has a dependent reality on the conscious presence. How do you understand that consciousness is present everywhere? Because look at this, we have no problem understanding that existence is everywhere because everything exists. we have no problem saying the person exists or the person is conscious. But where is the problem now? When you say the rock, how is the rock conscious? Because we said that sat is chit and chit is sat. So you can't like say, well, yeah, rock exists. It enjoys sat, but it doesn't enjoy chit. You can't say that because wherever there's sat, that's exactly where chit is. So if the rock exists, by definition, that existent rock should also enjoy consciousness. But I don't see consciousness, do I? Unlike with Gayatri, if I look at Gayatri, I say she's enjoying consciousness because she's moving. But with a rock, I can't say that. Therefore, we have to go through a certain inquiry, which we will do now, to understand that even the rock is enjoying consciousness. So to understand how consciousness is everywhere, we have to divide reality into three parts. The pramata, that's called the knower. The prameya, that's the object. And the pramana, that's the means of knowledge. So let's talk about pramata, the knower. What is the knower? The knower is the self-aware mind. In the field of consciousness, when the mind grows in the field of consciousness, that mind becomes self-aware of itself, of its own inner stuff, and also of the outer stuff. Because of those two, Indriya Pratyaksha and Sakshi Pratyaksha. It's not like the mind grows, by the way. The mind was always true since beginningless time. But just for the sake of inquiry, when the mind grows, we'll take, for example, Elizabeth's mind. Once upon a time, imagine there was no Elizabeth's mind. In the field of consciousness, which is everywhere, like space, it's everywhere. When Elizabeth's mind grows, from the standpoint of that mind, that becomes a knower. That's called pramata, or subject, or ahamkara, or I sense. And that mind says, I know about me, the little mind amongst many other little minds. I have an individuality. I know myself to be this person. I am important. Tomorrow I am unimportant. Next day I am very important. So the mind has an opinion about itself being pervaded by consciousness. That mind, which is now self-aware because it's pervaded by one consciousness. Remember, there's only one consciousness that we just explained. In that one consciousness, the mind grows. That mind becomes self-aware, and it now enjoys an individuality. It says, I am a knower. I know myself to be this person with a certain personality. And then it takes itself to be real, right? It gives itself reality. Now, what Vedanta says, you are not the individual knowers. You're not any given knowings that change every day. The knowings about who I am. I am big, next day I am small, next day I am like this, next day I'm miserable, next day I'm happy, next day this. All of these knowings, these I senses, these egos, they're all changing. Can you see that? What Vedanta says is you are the presence, you are the consciousness because of which all individual knowings are known. So one knowing one day is known to be what? A good mom. Next day, I am a bad mom. Next day, I am a wonderful mom. Next day, I'm the best mom. You see how the opinion of the knower changes? That's the ahamkara. That's the I sense. But what's common? The consciousness because of which every individual knowing is known. So if I ask you the question now, how do you discern between the I sense and consciousness? Because this is the common trick for most. Like, how do I know if I'm referring to the real I or in my individual knower I? How do I know that?
Because the sakshi, or the one that's witnessing all the changes, is not changing. So it's able to see all these changes.
You get that? Very good, Lorena. Okay, so the presence because of which the different opinions about myself are known. That presence that's always true, that's chit, consciousness. While the I sense changes, while the knower changes, what doesn't change is consciousness, the underlying presence. Never affected by the pain knower, the sorrow knower, the successful knower, the not so successful knower. You understand when I say knower? The subject, the I, right? The small I, free of the small I, free of the big I, free of the miserable I, free of the depressed I, free of the very happy I, free of the I just won the lotto I. Let's talk about the prameya, the object. For example, it's very easy, as I said, to say a living being has consciousness. How do I make the same statement in reference to an inert object like water or fire or a rock? So in order to understand this, what Vedanta says is if you look at particles at the smallest level, they combine themselves intelligently in such a manner that at every larger level, there is a more complex form. Starting at the particle comes like atom. Atoms come together. How many of them? 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Why not 3? Because if it was 3, it would not be water. If it was not water, then the entire ecosystem would die. So it has to be 2 specifically for water to come. 2 H and 1 O equals water. But now, if you look at H2O and you look at, for example, sodium chloride, and you put water and sodium chloride together. Sodium chloride, by the way, is made of 1 particle of sodium and 1 particle of chlorine. So sodium chloride is another combination. You put that combination towards H2O, you know what you get? What did you put in your food today? Salt. And then nature designs a system whereby this system is able to extract the salt from the water. It's able to evaporate the salt from the water through precipitation, and then feeds the animals with this clean, pure water without taking all of the water, all of the salt out of the oceans, leaving that, but at the same time designing a system to extract the salt from the oceans. And then you combine salt and sulfuric acid, for example, and you get detergent, what you wash your dishes with. Every one of those levels, water, sodium chloride, you combine them together and you have a different function that serves a certain purpose in this world. Water serves a certain purpose. Salt serves a certain purpose. Without it, you die. The body needs salt. So there's a connection between the body and the salt and the water. So whatever designed the body, whatever put together the cells of the body and the salt, whatever made that sodium chloride, also understands water, also understands your body, also understands precipitation, also understands clouds, also understands what it takes to evaporate water into the clouds. That's called heat, and how much of a temperature is required to evaporate it into the clouds. At every level, there is an intelligence. Can it be a random thing? Can it be a random intelligence? Just like that, just randomly put H2, put 2 hydrogen. Let's just test that out. Put 1 O, put 2 O, put 3 O. Okay, we'll just put it all together randomly. If you look at the world, everything at every level, when it organizes itself from the smallest to the largest, every arrangement has a connection to another arrangement at its level. And it has a function to something else. And you put all of these functions together and you say the world, the cosmos. The cosmos working intelligently, or arranged intelligently, governed by laws and orders such as gravity, such as dharma, how to conduct yourself properly without killing your own tribe. There's a certain respect in the lion tribe, in the animal tribe, in the human tribe. That too is a law that's governing the very construct of the particles at every level arranging themselves to create a complex life form. Therefore, what you can see is at every level of arrangement of particles, molecules, no matter how small to how big you go, what's common? We said it's not random. It is organized. It is very well put together and organized, which implies what? Intelligence. Intelligence. Just like the human being takes salt and takes sulfuric acid or acid rain and says, let me bring these two together so I can create a detergent. That human being not only exists, but is also conscious and also is using knowledge. In that same way, all of those things that are not created by a human being also has to exist, also has to be intelligence, and also has to be conscious. You cannot think of knowledge without it enjoying consciousness at the same time. Therefore, find me one thing in this universe that is not conscious. The grass. Why does the grass grow to a certain length? Why does it not keep on growing forever? What says this much you should grow? What preserves the leaf in a certain pattern and supplies it the photosynthesis process, able to extract the heat rays from the sun, convert it into chemical energy, and feed the trees with the right energy source, and design the right pores in the leaves to extract carbon dioxide and give that tree the process to convert it into an oxygen, which benefits life forms. Can you see the connection? Intelligence at the tree level. So whatever created the tree must also know about the connection to other human life forms which need oxygen, must also be conscious of the arrangement of particles that are to create a human being whose lungs, also being an arrangement of particles, will exhale carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide has to have a connection to a tree, which will convert that into an oxygen, which this very arrangement called the lungs will be able to inhale and therefore preserve the life source of this human being so that they can work out their karma, their unresolved desires within the context of gravity and all of the laws and orders that are given to you by which you can conduct yourself with other human beings. Can you see the complexity of this intelligence? To combine all of these particles, and every level, there is a function to another set of particles put together intelligently, and them operating in a certain coherent fashion within a structure, within an order, to create this entire cosmos, which then we observe with a awe. Every form, including a rock, which is nothing but elements, being held together, atoms, with a certain electron, proton, around the orbit. Why is it turning horizontally, not vertically? Why is the atom round, not square? Why is it 3 quark up and 2 quark down and not 5 quark up and 1 quark down to make a carbon atom? This implies intelligence. Therefore, you cannot think of intelligence without being or enjoying consciousness at the same time. Okay, so let's revise. The question I asked was, how is consciousness, chit, known to the knower? You know what the knower is? When the mind grows in the field of consciousness, that becomes a knower, a self-aware individual. How is consciousness known to that knower?
Self-revealing.
Self-revealing. No one needs to tell me that I am conscious. I already know that I am. And this consciousness seems confined in reference to a cup, right? Just like a cup. The space inside a cup, it seems confined in reference to its walls. Now tell me, is the space outside this cup different than the space inside the cup? Is it different?
No.
No. When I move this cup from here this represents your body mind, by the way. When I move it from here to here, has the space moved or has the cup moved? Because look at this, the space is waiting. Come to me, come to me. The cup is coming. Whoop. You see this? The space that was here didn't move anywhere. When the cup moves, the space is waiting. Come to me. Zoop. So the cup moves, does the space move? The space doesn't move. But in reference to the cup, from the standpoint of the cup, it seems like I. Now, what's the I referring to? The space in this example, the space, the consciousness in this example. I am moving only in reference to the cup. But are you actually moving? No, but it seems like you're moving in reference to the cup. Now, when the cup breaks, the space, is it really released? Is it really free, or it was always free inside the cup?
It is always free.
It was always free, but it seemed confined in reference to while your body was alive. So when the cup breaks, the space is not really freed. It was always freed, but it seems like it's now free in reference to the cup. In that same manner, consciousness seems to be confined in reference to your body. Even after moksha, this doesn't change. It's not like moksha now, I'm everywhere. Because there's a body, like a cup, as long as there's a cup, a body, mind, the as though confinement makes it seem like I am small. And what is this I am small referring to? To the very little space inside. But the I am is actually where? Everywhere around. So therefore, the ignorant person takes this I am, the space inside the cup, and attributes the smallness in reference to the edges of this cup. I am from here to here, therefore I'm small. But the wise person understands, despite the edges, that's called the body, from here to here, which makes it seem as though I'm small, in actuality, the I, whatever I is being referred to, is the very same I, the all-pervading consciousness, in which all minds obtain, including your mind right now, and because of which your mind is aware, because of which you are aware, because of you, because of this one I. The one I that's making your mind aware right now is the same I that's making this mind aware right now. Why is it one? Because, as we said, it is all pervading. Sat is everywhere, and Sat is always Chit. There's always one Sat, therefore there's always one Chit. We have two cups. One is called Nitin, mind. Other is called Andre, mind. Okay, what's the difference? The container, no doubt. What's the same inside Nitin and what's the same inside Andre? I, the consciousness because of which Nitin says I am. I, the consciousness because of which Andre says I am. But what's superimposed, as though superimposed on the I am? Nitin's mind, what's as though superimposed on Andre, on I from the standpoint of Andre? Andre's mind. Therefore, the wise person understands, despite the as though confinement, which is what's called reflected consciousness, by the way, despite the as though confinement, actually, I am not confined at all. Therefore, the wise person doesn't try to get rid of their mind, doesn't try to expand their mind. Because suppose you expand your mind this much. So what? You can always expand it this much. Look how much more you can expand. So why bother expanding your mind? And from the standpoint of objects, how do you understand that objects enjoy consciousness, inert objects? You have to do a certain inquiry. You have to bring in the knowledge which arranges all particles together intelligently, by which all forms are sustained, and by which all forms change from one to the next. The leaf today on the tree is going to be very different than the leaf tomorrow. But what caused that perfect relationship, that perfect transmission, that perfect gradual growth, evolution from today and tomorrow? What sustained that growth? The very same intelligence that's here today will be the very same intelligence continuing to evolve that leaf on the tree tomorrow. So the intelligence never leaves. And the only way the intelligence can sustain that leaf is in the presence of consciousness. So pramata is the knower, prameya is the object, and finally, pramana is the means of knowledge. Means of knowledge is your mind. How any knowledge from the outside takes place in your mind. The way that rishis have figured out, this cup cannot enter your brain physically, but it as though entered your brain right now. How does this cup enter your brain, even though not physically, but it's still inside your brain right now? There's a certain way light bounces off this, right? Photons bounce off this object. They enter the physical, right, retina. The retina sends electrical signals to the brain communicates with the mind, and the mind replicates this object, and that's what we call vritti jnanam in Sanskrit. Vritti jnanam means knowledge of this object has taken place in my mind. And in philosophy, it works exactly the same. In philosophy, when the teacher communicates a certain teaching to you, when that teaching is heard through your ears, it enters the brain to the extent to how complete that vritti jnanam is in your brain relative to the knowledge that is being communicated by the teacher. If that vritti jnanam perfectly matches what the teacher is speaking about, that's called knowledge. I have understood. But what happens sometimes is, owing to our biases and our subjectivity, even though the teacher communicates something, a philosophical concept, by the time it enters into your brain captures it, but then it changes it according to its own biases, its own psychological pressures. Therefore, what the teacher communicated is only captured 50% of the original. The original would be like this, but what you captured was like that. Therefore, you have to come back next session to slowly pull in every finger and eventually match the original communication as intended by the teacher. Now, this knowledge inside your brain, inside your mind, is it not also consciousness? Because look at this. If I say to you, cup, look at this. See, are you conscious of the word see? Because this is inside your brain right now. This is pramana. This is vritti jnanam inside your brain. And this is called a cup. So inside your brain, there's a cup. If I say the word C for cup, are you conscious of the word C, of the letter C? U, P. Conscious of C, conscious of U, conscious of P. What's the content of the entire object called cup? Consciousness. I'm conscious of the entire cup. The whole thing from beginning to the end, I was conscious. So what's the content of every object in your mind? Consciousness. Therefore, we say pramana is also consciousness. Okay? And finally, I know this is an extended session. So chit kim, jnana swarupaha. It is that which is of pure knowledge. So this is a different way to explain what consciousness is. It says it is pure knowledge. Consciousness is pure knowledge. So this is not like cup knowledge. It's just another name for knowledge. In this case is consciousness. Knowledge because of which all knowledges take place. Knowledge of cup. Knowledge of cup takes place because of what? Consciousness. Okay? Consciousness. That means consciousness is the knowledge principle, the unqualified knowledge principle, because of which knowledge of cup, knowledge of space, knowledge of laptop, knowledge of clouds, all of these knowledges come and go. Okay, and finally, anandamayaha kaha. If you think that sat-chit is limited, because now you say, well, geez, what happens after death for a wise person? Is it just like this? Am I just like existent and aware? That sounds quite boring. I'm just going to be what? Existent and aware after, my body falls away. I would rather come back on earth and at least be existent to roses, existent to love, existent to, you know, great food. I don't want to just be existent and aware after I pass away. And, you know, that's all there is to it. So the question is, if you think that Sat and Chit is limited in any way, Ananda answers no, it is limitless. In fact, it is Sukha Swarupa. The Sukha Swarupa will be expounded next week. Look at these three words, Sat and Chit and Ananda. Are these adjectives to Atma? Because who are you? You are Atma, yourself. Are these words adjectives? Now, what is an adjective? An adjective is to distinguish one object from another in the same category, jati. So suppose you have lilies, right? And you now you want to get blue lilies, you want to have fragrant lilies, and you want to have big lilies, right? So in order to get big lilies, I have to, what am I implying? The presence of small lilies. To get fragrant lilies, I'm implying the presence of stinky lilies. To get blue lilies implies the presence of green lilies. So therefore, to say, right, blue, big, and fragrant lily is to give it adjectives, which implies there are different lilies. However, when I say Sat and Chit and Ananda, are these three words adjectives to Atma, as is big, blue, and fragrant to lily? No. These are not adjectives. These are called defining words. It's not describing you apart from someone else. Oh, okay, so your sat-chit-ananda is different from someone else's sat-chit-ananda. Sat-chit is the content from which everything is made, including you, because there's nothing but sat-chit-ananda. Okay, so this is to be kept in mind. These are defining words of Atma. They are not adjectives in reference to Atma. Otherwise, that implies that another Atma has different Sat-Chit-Ananda. There's only one Sat-Chit-Ananda in whose presence all things manifest and change and come and go. All right, next week we will talk about Anandamayaha Kaha Sukha Swarupa. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti